So good evening, everyone. I'm Jane Ring. I'm the Look Parent Carer Support Officer. Today's themed session is on supporting your child's advocacy skills. And we're very lucky. Not only have we got Nikki Rules here, who's a parent carer of a 17-year-old, 18 now, who is really finding her feet in terms of advocacy. But I'm going to share a little bit of my story with my daughter, but also some of the kind of bits around law, which could be quite interesting. Then we have Andrea, who works for Look and has really helped people find their advocacy skills, particularly Chloe, actually. And Sean, they're both mentors, and Sean is a IT teacher at New College, Worcester. And our very special guest tonight is Malika, who is one of the mentees, who is so passionate about advocacy that she really wanted to come tonight. And how could I refuse? So Malika will be speaking after Sean. Because there's a lot of us, and because I know you'll have questions, what we're going to do is the two parents will speak first, and we'll have a little break so people can then ask questions of us, and then we'll move on to Sean, Andrea, and Malika after that. Just to remind you all, I'm sure you will be to mute yourselves, because actually there's a lot of people on the call and it just makes it easier. There will be time for questions, to use the chat if you think of something, and we'll try and get to answer it when we get to that point. To be respectful of each other, and to let you know we are recording this, because we know that it's hard for some people to come to these events, so we want to make them available for others in our community. So they're edited and they will go on our website. It might be next year now, but that's what we'd like to do, and we're going to put our other recordings up there soon as well. So I think we shall begin. It's me first. There's no one else in the waiting room, is there, Ellen? Ellen is working hard behind the scenes.
No, waiting room's quiet.
Perfect. So I'll begin. So I've put together a little PowerPoint for you. I used to work for the Devon Sendias, and this is something I worked on when I was with them. This is my little PowerPoint about supporting your child's advocacy skills. So what is advocacy? Being able to express what you want and need, to have the strength to say when things are going wrong, to stand up for yourself in a way that can be heard and responded to be able to tell the people in your life what would make things easier, a skill that we carry on developing throughout our lives. And we need the right tools and support in order to advocate. And it isn't straightforward, particularly as we know, babies and toddlers, we are totally their advocates because they have no voice. And then there are those of us with children who never have strong verbal communication and also mask, but there are still ways that they can advocate for themselves, and we can make sure that their provision is what they need. And also, the last thing I thought of when I put this slide together is that it can be really hard to advocate for ourselves when we're trying to fit in. And things change as our children grow as well. So why should our children be listened to? I wanted to put this slide in to reassure you and to let you know it is a legal requirement. It's in section 19 of the Children and Families Act 2014, and I will send you a list of even more quotes actually after this when I put the resources. But you need to know that the local authority must consider, so it's your child's views, wishes and feelings, their options and choices about the decisions being made. The local authority needs to give child all the information and support to say what they think and to support their development, helping them achieve the best possible outcome. And the whole point is that they should have a choice and control about the support they get. That's really key, and I think it gives you strength to know that. And why does it matter? Because if our child's views, wishes, concerns, what they really hope for is considered all the way through their life, it makes sure they're at the centre of the plan, that they're involved in decisions. There's nothing worse, and I know we have it as parents, when things are decided that we are not involved in or part of. It can change their attitude and keep them motivated, because they need to know what's being planned, and they need to have decisions and agree on equipment and be ready to use it. It's all really key. The focus remains on what they want, not just what is possible. And any plans that are made are personal to them. That is so important. Every single one of our children are different. They experience the world differently, and they all need different things for them to succeed. They're supported to achieve their own goals. And professional school, the team around the family know about their strengths and not just their needs. That is key as well. So it really does matter. And what's your role? To teach them about advocating for themselves. That's not easy, but if we can go into meetings, if we can find a way of, to start with, we're the ones that express what they need, and do it in a way that people listen to us, then they learn that it makes they can be heard, and also eventually they want to take it on. We need to respect their views. As our children get older, their views might differ from us, but that's okay. To allow them to share their opinions, to show others how to listen and communicate with them, because we know our children best, and particularly in the younger years, often we're the ones that interpret and know what's happening and can share it. So it is our job to make sure others know. To understand your child may not want the same things as you do, and to support them to fill their potential. So I wanted also to think about how to do it. It can be through forms, as we know, with the educational healthcare plan, but there are so many other ways of gathering views. So the first thing is always to use their method of communication, and that there is no one way, just their way. I work quite closely in my other role with a lady who is a fantastic advocate for children, and often work with children with autism, children who really didn't know how to express what they wanted, didn't know what they wanted. And in fact, my own daughter was very similar to that. But she used to find their point which they liked and use that. So she would go fishing with a young man who was excluded, and they found a way and a mutual kind of language through the fishing. With Chloe, she would spend hours playing with little squishy creatures and naming them, and then trying to talk to her about school through that. But it's just really key to know that you don't have to fill in those forms, that you can find any way your child will engage. Lego, storyboards, clay models, these are all the things I thought of this afternoon. Songwriting, if your children love singing, they can sing a song about school, they could sing a song about friendships, songs that just help them express how they feel. Telling stories, often play when you're younger, when children are younger, you can introduce play, and pictures. And I just wanted to share with you this, and I'll put it on the link afterwards, but this is a really good resource that's been created by Positive Eye, who work with visually impaired children and children with complex needs. And it's a little box, and it has statements, and the child has to put in one side the statements of things that are easy. So playtime, I don't know, maths, if that's easy, they put it in that side. And then the other side, could be easier. And what it does is enable them to talk about the things that are difficult, but also come up with solutions. How could it be easier? And without it being a form, it does a lot of that work. So I'll make sure that you get this link afterwards. And now I just need to get rid of it. There you go. and I know that all our children are different, but I just wanted to have on this slide that non-verbal children can share too. There's all the AAC devices, eye gaze, and there's some websites which I will look up and send over, some people who have kind of developed programs to support kind of that interaction and communication with children who are non-verbal. And also, as our children get older, it isn't appropriate anymore for us to find their voice. And I don't know if other people have found it, but often professionals don't take our views quite as seriously. If we say it, they kind of do, but if our children say it, it is taken more seriously. So seeking support from experts who are impartial and can advocate is really key. In our case, actually, Chloe's mentor, Andrea, who you're going to hear from later, has really helped Chloe talk about her feelings. Your local Sendia service, some of them have young people's workers, and that's who worked with Chloe before Andrea. So there are different ways. Charities can help as well. So anyone that your child respects and likes, but isn't the school and isn't you, can be really helpful in gathering views. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Chloe, just to illustrate some of the things that how I've supported her as much as I could. So just recently, she's found secondary school a lot harder. She felt understood and fitted in primary school, didn't have a problem. They just were able to meet her needs in an easier way, I think. But secondary school was much harder, and she really struggled with being different. She hated her one-to-ones, she didn't want them. Everything was new, but she couldn't talk about it. She just became really, really angry. She completely withdrew. She would come home and lie under her desk, but couldn't say what was wrong. And actually, I only knew because someone else at the school, parents of one of her friends, kind of phoned me and said, "Did you know that Chloe was crying in the loos?" And I was like, "No." So I was really stuck about how to support this communication. So she's quite young. So even in year 7, she was still using squishies, and she had squishies to help her relax. And so someone suggested that we just put a pot on our kitchen table, just so she could tell us what kind of day she had had. So she chose a lemon to show that she'd had a bad day, and a cake to show that she'd had a good day. So she'd come home and she wouldn't say anything to us, but she would pick up whichever one and put it in. And often at that time it was lemons. And then if she wanted to, she could come and talk to me about it. And often it was at bedtime and she'd share a bit more. But that really helped starting her to understand that her feelings were important. And then Andrea helped to talk about her feelings as well, because she just got what Chloe was going through. And now she's much more able to advocate with her friends and advisory teachers. She's very articulate, just checking time, about what she wants for her future and where she wants to learn. And I'm really confident that that will help her get to her next setting, because we no longer think her school is meeting her needs, and actually she is really clearly saying it too, which is very helpful. So that is my whistle-stop tour about why advocacy is important. I will send you the PowerPoints afterwards, but I'm sure a lot of you have those feelings with your child, and I know people have sent in questions about supporting your children's confidence. So we're now going to hear from Nikki, who's the other parent. Nikki's asked me to read Rihanna's quote out, who's 18, and then she's going to speak. So this is Rihanna's story. Being able to advocate for myself has let me feel that I can really get my say and get my message across. School had often tried to fill in the forms about what I think, but often get it wrong. usually saying everything is okay when it's not. My mum has been an excellent advocate, but over the years of problems I've had, but they don't count this as much as they should. Hence, the more I got to say, the better I felt. So, Nikki, are you okay to share your story?
Yes, I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. And I'm going to mute so we just hear you.
Okay. I'll excuse anyone who loses a little bit because we're in the middle of Storm Barra at the moment. We have had some power cuts, and a couple of times it said my internet is unstable, so I'll power on and see what I can get through. What I thought would be useful is that Rihanna's got to this stage, but through a long journey, because we needed to advocate from day one because she had other disabilities. Well, we didn't actually know she had the visual impairment, although she did at that point. So we've had to advocate for a long time. And so I've gone through the stages of where she started and where she's ended up. And I've put it into sort of stages and age groups, really. And in the early days, we always discussed things with Rihanna to get her point of view, to, put it in a language that she understood. Even when she was very young, but obviously we had to advocate at that point. But, ideas that you can have, and we could have used, but didn't think about it in the very early days, is sort of draw pictures, even if it's just a happy face or a sad face, or, as you say, if you want to use a squidgy or anything like that, really helps. And if they put a picture of wanting to be friends with people, lots of stick pictures, it doesn't matter really. And if they can write at that stage, get them to write on it, even if it's a couple of words, even if it's happy or sad or whatever, and put their name on it, because if they see something in your child's writing, then they know that they're accepting of what that is representing. And then sometimes, even in the early days, we've had no choice but to get outside help, but don't feel that that's a failure in your advocacy. It's just some of the problems have a bigger remit. And so you make sure your child advocates within that, but sometimes you need another body to help them listen to what your needs actually are. And every time we've got an outside agency involved, we've actually got what we wanted. So it's been a really useful tool when they're the big problems, but for the more day-to-day and operational things. Later on, we scribed for Rihanna, putting more detail, letting her put a picture in. We always asked her to sign it and put a few more of her own words if she wished. And then as soon as she could, your child could write it if they can, but because Rihanna was embarrassed about her dyslexia and the difficulty she was having with writing, what we did is we typed it as scribed what she said, and then she signed it, because they have no idea whether she typed it or we typed it, but they're her words, she read them out, she signed them. But our biggest tip that we were given by an advocate, funny enough, was send a copy of the child's views before a meeting to all the people due to attend the meeting, and anyone else you or your child wants to see it, as well as, I know the school often, if it's an official meeting, say they will actually forward it round, but as of yet, we've not actually experienced that. But we found we've got more out of any meeting with doing that, because everyone around the table knows what your child is trying to say, so it enables them to know what your child is wanting out of it, so they can't wriggle and try and suggest something else. Because like Rihanna has said, we've had quite a few annual reviews where they've said, oh, your child has said they're happy, and you're thinking, well, they might, but that's because they're going to mask it and you're not asking the questions they want to answer. And then even better, as time has gone, what Rihanna's been able to do is actually speak for herself, because she's gradually built up the confidence. And we found, though, even with that, still do the written summary, still send it beforehand, because it took the pressure off Rihanna when she got to the meeting of worrying whether she was going to say everything that she wanted to say, so then she could relax into it, and then found that she could actually say more, which was really good. And the other thing is, though, my son is much more of he has social communication difficulties. He's just at the age of 19 now, finally got his autism diagnosis after knowing since he was 6 from a paediatrician, but there we are. But even at 19, he wants to advocate but can't say. So what we do now is we go into a meeting, and we will say he would like us to advocate, and he will indicate that either by nodding or saying so if he feels comfortable, and he will either stay in the meeting or he will leave after 5 minutes. But by just having him there and saying, I want my parent to advocate, then it's passing on that permission. And once they get to 18, that becomes an essential way of doing it, because otherwise they say, well, your son's 18, he can advocate for themselves, and he doesn't feel able to. And this is built up to yesterday. Rihanna, I was in hospital, so Rihanna was not happy because the local authorities said that an online provider they'd provided for wasn't going to do something because they hadn't asked for it, and then the others were saying that the local authority hadn't paid. So she phoned up the link person and told them what for, and that she was really frustrated and the impact it was having on the education. And today I found out that it got paid and sorted out. So, you know, ultimately, you know, she's built up to having the confidence to do that, and I think that's an amazing thing. One thing to not feel downhearted by, it's ongoing because of transitions to different schools, to different issues. When you have a different teacher, often if there's a change with the QTVI, or we've even found change with assistive technology, when the old one gets old and you get a new one in, there'll always be those moments where you have to sort of advocate again and again. But what happens is your child will build confidence, however they communicate, in your skills to advocate for them when needed, as if with my son, or with Rihanna, her confidence to actually to do that. And so your child and yourself adapt with age and time. But what I was also going to say is that, you know, on top of that, we've also used outside help. Sometimes if we feel we're hitting a bit of a brick wall, we happen to have a friend who worked with VI people, so had an experience of that. But sometimes just having another person sit at the table made them think about it. That's pre-COVID days. But we've used the RNIB, we've used the friend, we've used charities, we've used the guide dogs, we've used different people at different times. We've actually paid for an advocate a number of years ago because we didn't know who to go to with my son, but now we're actually advocating for Rihanna because they haven't provided her with work, but she's still advocating extremely well for herself. Sometimes you just need that extra bit of help of having someone who was able with Rihanna to say, well, actually, these are your options. And so she was giving her the total choice of, do you want to carry on? Do you want to make a complaint? Do you want to do it yourself? Do you want to do it with me? Or would you like me to do it on your behalf? And Rihanna's totally, okay with all those decisions. And I think that really shows how she's grown as a person, and how you can facilitate that yourself by advocating and getting an advocate to support them when you need to, and letting them advocate when it's the right time as well. And that's me done, I think.
Can you just share the story about the group that Rihanna recently talked to? Because I thought that was just so lovely.
Oh yes, I was going to say about that. The police cadets. Rihanna has been a voluntary police cadet, but now she's 18. She has to become a leader if she wants to stay on. So she was going along because she's just had her 18th birthday. She went along, and there was someone in a wheelchair, and there was someone else who actually has a visual impairment, but then there were the other people there. And so she was just telling her story and explaining about how they can explain you know, if they can't see things and how to express it. And it was just lovely to hear that she was then advocating, you know, teaching the next generation. I mean, they were about 3 or 4 years younger than her, but, you know, supporting them to be able to speak up as well. And so, as you say, like we'll hear in a minute, it's about going through your own journey and then being able to pass those on to other people.
Thank you. That's fantastic. I shall stop sharing, but it was lovely to see Rihanna and her dog. What's her dog called, Nikki?
That's Willow. That was her replacement for the buddy dog that didn't quite work out for us. But actually, we call our buddy dog was the Angel, because we've ended up with little Willow that will be able to sit on her lap in a wheelchair. So that's great.
And fantastic quote as well. So thank you. That's just brilliant. So now, guys, you have a little bit of time before we hear from the mentors to ask Nikki or myself any questions, if you'd like. I know I've just put you all on the spot. I see a sea of little square boxes.
Hello.
Hello.
It's quite interesting listening to everybody, because my son's 15 now, and I always wondered why every time you ask him a question, he says, I don't know. And it's quite frustrating, because now he's in his GCSE year, and we've just found out that all his VI equipment was sent back in year 8, and he didn't even tell us that it'd been sent back. And now we're trying to unpick everything, because we've had another child of ours who's had special needs, so we've been concentrating on that child. So for the past 2 years, things have been quite hectic. I just don't know how to get him to verbalise how he's feeling, and how to actually talk to us parents when things, you know, when he can't find his VI equipment at school. He used to have a Prodigy and Team Viewer using an iPad, and I said, school said you don't use that anymore, and he goes, well, it just disappeared. And I said, didn't you think about questioning, where's it gone? He said, I don't know, no, I didn't. I just don't know why he just doesn't talk to us, you know. I mean our other children do, and I don't know how that's linked to visual impairment. He was bullied as a child in primary school for 4 years, and we never even found out. Hear me?
Yes, yeah, I can now. Yeah, it caught up with itself.
So in primary school, when he was bullied, we found out from somebody else, they had to talk about anti-bullying week, and he said, oh, that happens to me. So they were giving examples of what bullying is. And I said, why didn't you ever tell me? He said, well, I thought that was normal. I thought everybody went through that. And then I started looking at things through his eyes, thinking, you can't actually see what is normal, because he's quite severely visually impaired. And I think that's impacted his confidence. And I'm just trying to find ways of encouraging him to talk, because we're going through stage 3 complaints procedure at school. And now so many things have gone wrong, and we're really fearful for his GCSEs. And a lot of the time, I always feel that people think we're being overprotective parents, or we're trying it on, basically. And I'm trying to get them to understand this is his views, and I've explained that he really lacks confidence in speaking up for himself. And I just don't know how to move forward. It just seems a battle all the time, and I'm so tired of it all. And I'm really worried for him, how he's going to speak for himself, really, when he's independent.
There's a comment from someone, Sally, and I think she echoes what everyone's feeling. That is just such a tough story. And it is just expecting our children to speak, particularly if they're a mainstream school. It's very hard for them to stand up. And my daughter has, because she's got hearing impairment as well, and she's got specialist support workers. But I found the older she gets, the more they expect her to be able to say, but I still don't think she can. Sorry. I would recommend finding someone he can speak to.
Mm.
Is he involved in the mentoring at all at Look?
No, I've heard about it, and I was going to get in touch with Look. It's just that we're trying to apply for EHCP. Everything's like, when you've got two children with special needs, and you try and balance things and try and make things work for both of them, and then you have other children as well, and then you've got work as well, and it's just it's like a tornado in my head, and it gets really, really down sometimes.
But
and
it's huge. Yeah, it's huge, and it's nothing you have done. I think someone's just also suggested there is some really good support from charities. Guide dogs have family support. They've got really good education support as well, and it might be just worth talking to them, because as Sally said, where's the QTVI in this? Because they also should be the champion for your son and go into the school and make sure his equipment is there and running. And so
surprisingly, the QTVI, I've put in a formal complaint about her as well, and they've just sent me a list about all her involvement when she went in, what she did. But we said, well, there's no conversations there about what she talked to them about, because exams access arrangement, she should have, at every stage, it's always us who've said, is he getting his extra time? And they've always said, no, he's only going to get 50% time. And I said, his levels are like 2 and 3, which is like a D and an E. And they've been like that for 3 years. And I said, that's not acceptable, because he was greater depth in Key Stage 2 in Year 6. And even when they did the baseline testing, when he started secondary, they didn't give him all the access arrangements he's supposed to have, the extra time. They didn't enlarge anything. And they said, oh, we're basing it on our tests. I said, but your tests are wrong, because you did not give him a fair chance. He's a really clever boy, and you're failing him. And it's always been like a battle with them. They just don't get it. It's like there's no empathy.
There is some. Did you come to the education rights session? Because I can send you some information following that as well. But why don't I get in touch with you after this, and I can go through some options for you, because it is key. His voice is key, but also that this gets sorted and there is a plan put in place around him. So yeah, and I'm not surprised you feel down, but there will be ways and people that can help. So
Jane, can I just come in very briefly on this one
Yes.
before we move on?
Yes.
Just having worked in the education sector as well, it sounds awful, and you're quite right. The QTVI and the Senko, the school between them, should have picked this up. It's, I don't want to say illegal, but completely immoral to expect him to be able to take GCSEs without a recognised medium of work. So if they've taken his tech off him 2 years ago and he's not been able to use it in lessons and everything, then he can't sit exams using that stuff when he gets it back without any training or updates or anything. That's completely impractical. It just sounds like they've completely dropped the ball, and that's outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, they have. I'm doing every year. We're talking about can you teach him how to use a scribe and a reader, and he needs to be taught these things so that he knows how easy it can make his life, and then he can have a choice at the when it is GCSE time of which equipment is best for him. So I've been doing all that at home, and I've said to him, like for English papers, he never finished the exam even with 50%, and that's why his levels were 2 and 3. And then I started trialing exams at home, and I said, let's use the laptop. And I think he's got like 6, a 7. It's like he's doubled his grade. And I'm trying to prove to school that, you've not given him the proper access arrangements, and you've not collected enough evidence to put forward to the exam boards. And that's my biggest problem. What if the exam boards say, no, he's going to end up with levels 2 and 3. He can't go anywhere with that. And the QTVI, she's the one who's supposed to be guiding him and teaching him how to use a scribe and teaching school how to do it. And she's not even done that. And it's a shambles, actually. I just can't believe it. It's like we were so concentrating on my other child's been in hospital for like 2 years, in and out of hospital. So we attended his SEN meetings and we just thought things will be okay. And we come to now and it's just terrible. And it's so annoying.
It is, but it's also not too late. And I would also say there's some interesting chat going on about exams, but also look at other options. I think the worst thing you can feel is completely stuck. And that I know it feels right now that he should do his GCSEs a lot online with it, but it might need a pause and a rethink. So let me send you some details of people someone else has put in about look mentors, which will help in the future, hopefully. And we'll make sure someone from our team contacts you, because yeah, it's a tough situation. And you can't just give him that confidence to speak for himself. So yeah, we'll support you.
Can I just throw something in there? Two things, because we've just been through GCSEs and all of the stuff that goes with that. We've been exactly through the same thing with our son, didn't want to communicate. However, in the end, through catching bits and pieces of information, I gradually wrote a document of what I thought, and I then just sent him across to him to read and say, is this how you feel? And then he said, well, yes, actually it is. And then he signed it. So it wasn't getting him, he can't directly tell you. So he would say, I don't know. But often through bits and pieces of information, you do find out some of the information. And if you get it down, then that's a piece that he can then put down and sign. But also with regard to, with Rihanna, they tried to teach her maths online, which visually doesn't work, because as we found out, because it's fine, but you're not teaching them the diagrams and things for her. So what we have insisted, because my son ended up with it before, so we knew it was available, but not until then, is that the local authority provided her with a home tutor, and that home tutor is absolutely amazing, and her maths is gone up by 2 grades just because she can see it, because she can get it. So, you know, there, as you say, there are lots of other options out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Anthea says there's also opportunity for breaks. So I'm glad you came tonight, and yeah, I'll send you a follow-up email as well. So I'm afraid we need to move on from this section. There's been some good chat. But it'd be really good now to hear from our mentors and their experiences. And then for the young BI mentee who's also here. So I'm going to come to Sean now. Sean, are you happy to introduce yourself? Kind of,
yes,
brilliant.
Gladly. Okay, so I'm Sean Randall. Some of you already know me. I teach IT at New College Worcester. I was quite an advocate for mainstream schools before I went to New College. I went through mainstream myself and had a very good experience, very positive experience. And it's only really since having worked at New College that I see quite how bad mainstream can be. I'm just reading the chats that have been coming in this evening, and that seems to be more common than it has been in the past. You know, it's gotten worse, I think, which is a shame. But that's not what I'm talking about tonight. So tonight you wanted me to talk a little bit about that sort of advocacy, and as sort of a VI person, and how it sort of has worked for me. I'm very lucky to teach young visually impaired students. They range in age from sort of 11 to 19. I tend to work with the year 11s up, so sort of 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And I think the year 11s are my current sort of crisis point. They've all got exams coming up. They've all been off with COVID. Some of them are really good about putting their feet down and saying what they want and speaking up, and others are less so. So it's been quite interesting to see that. In terms of my own experience as a blind person, I've been quite lucky. The only one incident I really wanted to share was sort of workplace related. We had a course at work, a first aid course, and everybody else had a printed copy of the certificate at the end placed in their pigeonholes, and I waited for mine and it didn't come, and I waited a bit longer and it still didn't come, and I went and knocked on the door of one of the management team and I said, where's my certificate? I did the course. And she said, oh, I've got yours here. And I said, but why isn't it in my pigeonhole? And she said, well, I didn't think you could read it. and I didn't know that if you'd be able to tell it was yours, because I share a pigeonhole with my colleagues in the same department. And I was a bit floored, because, lots of my job involves shared work. We have handover when other people take on, positions that I've been doing or they've been doing. We hand information across to each other. I know that what I teach the students is all about access technology, but I also teach them how much of a sighted world it is. And I was just quite stunned that despite this lady having joined the team recently, having had a lengthy exposition to being visually impaired and demos of all the tech, including something like the Seeing AI app, which can actually read print to you. I know that she had it because I did it myself. She was still stuck in this mindset, oh, if I put it in a pigeonhole, he might not be able to read it. And that really surprised me. And it took a sit down and explanation of what the technology could do again to make her realise that was it. But that's the worst thing that's happened to me in the past few years in terms of my blindness. I've been very lucky, very engaged. My colleague will happily leave me handwritten notes because he knows I can read them, and it makes me feel very included to be able to access those every time. And I think my top tip, because I was asked for one thing, is when you ask people, don't ask for something to be accessible, because that's such a broad term. My accessible isn't your accessible. So we were talking about this actually with my mentee a while ago, and I was saying how if you ask for something to be emailed to you, for example, that's a much more specific request than can I have it accessible, please? And we've certainly found in our experience as blind adults that when you're specific about what you need and what you want, you're more likely to get it. Whereas if you're not sure about what you want, there's a lot of dithering around until you can come to a happy compromise. So is that enough, Jane, or did you want me to?
Well, I'm going to ask you a couple of things, okay. I think. So how do you know, particularly when you're younger, what it is, how to be, the specification of what you need?
It's hard, isn't it? As a young person myself, I was isolated from other blind people. I went to mainstream. It was only the support of my QTVIs and their team that clued me into the information. Nowadays, everybody is connected to everybody else with technology already. There are Facebook groups, email groups, WhatsApp groups. One of my sort of key handouts to all my students is I don't just give them a laptop. We talk about what's on the laptop and why it's there and what it's for. And it doesn't mean that they take a bit longer to get through things, but they know why they're getting through it. And that's the key thing. They understand what they're using and why. They're not just using something that reads the screen. They're using this package, be it JAWS or whatever they're using. It's called JAWS because it stands for this, which means you can use it for doing that. And with that detailed explanation comes the ability to advocate for it for themselves in the future.
Brilliant. And so was there any barriers? Was there any difficulties during your school, your mainstream education, Sean, where you felt that not understood?
I think there was a big thing about Braille. I had this whole shelf in the library of Braille books, which looked like hundreds of books, but turns out to be, several dozen volumes, which in turn turned out to be only about 3 books because Braille is so big and bulky. So there was that sort of divide between what it looked like I had and what I actually had. And we see that repeated time and time again. People worry about getting extra time on exams because their friends will think they're getting more time and it's not fair. People worry about using equipment because it makes them look different. Everyone else is sat there with a pen and they're typing away or brailing away. There can be a lot of that in young people, and I think that's a recurring thread in the mentor and mentee scheme is looking different, and it's a big hurdle to overcome. So that's sort of probably the biggest challenge that young people seem to face when they're working with sighted peers, is not wanting to stand out, not wanting to be different, and that can be very difficult to analyse and work through.
Thank you. So you had one top tip. Was there anything else in terms of how because you obviously had a really good positive experience at your school, so were you well included in your decision making and all of that then? Did you feel you were part of kind of what your provision was going to be and what you were going to study and how you were going to study it?
Yes, I think luckily I was the only blind person around, so there were no dissenting views. If I decided something was going to work a certain way, they were very good and they tried. there were bits I didn't enjoy. I'll never forget, having to string shoelaces between two safety pins to mark a graph, and it was just tedious and mind-numbingly dull. And doing long division on the Perkins is no one's idea of fun, I'm sure. But yes, I felt very included. I had a voice. I am lucky, I suppose. I was articulate and I was sort of fairly academic already. I was listening earlier about not speaking up and not saying what you think, and I can't imagine not having that ability. It's very hard to shut me up when I get going. But yeah, obviously things tend to go wrong when people are quieter, aren't they? I think if people do stand up and make a noise, then things get sorted. And as we've heard earlier, if things just seem to be ticking on without anyone looking at them, that's when things can go unnoticed, and it can happen for a long time.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. So Andrea, I did swap you round, but anyway, you are next. Andrea went to New College as a student, and she's Chloe's mentor, and a fabulous look employee now as well. So Andrea, I'm just going to ask you some questions. So what are your key memories of advocating for yourself?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Sorry, yes, no. I shall speak up. What are your the key memories of advocating for yourself?
My key memories were when I was at secondary school, which was actually New College, and they were the best years of my life. I'm just going to put that out there now, so I don't want this to sound negative. I have dual sensory loss, and particularly one of the things I found difficult was standing up for my hearing impairment, because everyone was but I was the only one with a hearing impairment, and the teachers used to shout at me when I didn't hear or something like that, and made me feel really awful. So my first memory of having to stand up for myself was saying, you don't need to shout, you just need to say it clearly, because if you shout at me, you just distort the noise. And I was really lucky, and I had a really good bunch of friends in my class, and they backed me. And it was actually the teenagers on this occasion which were better than the staff. So
that must have been very hard. Did they understand a bit better afterwards?
Yes, they did, because it all came out that our headmistress had a hearing impairment that I didn't know about, and then she was able to explain to the staff from her point of view why I got upset and why I said what I'd said.
Oh, that's really key. So what do you think is the most difficult part of advocating for yourself? Because lots of these parents have children who really don't know where to start or how to kind of share their needs.
The most difficult part as a teenager, and still now occasionally, is that you believe that adults are always right. So you believe that if you say something, that the adults are going to be cross with you because they're the adults and you are the child. So, if you stick up for yourself as a child, I was often accused of being grumpy or stubborn or and you kind of then start to fear that. And when you go to say what you need, you then doubt yourself because the adults have said it's okay, so it must be okay. And I think that's where some of your children are coming from when you say to them, well, why didn't you say anything? I mean, maybe they thought, well, what if I had said anything and nobody listened? Or what if they just said, oh, I'm just being awkward? Because when you're a child, the grown-ups are in charge and they're not always right.
I muted myself, Andrea, so you couldn't hear me laughing, but it's right, I think. And I think there is a real balance, isn't it, as our children get older. And, when they're younger, it's maybe mother or father knows best. And actually, the thing is, for a lot of us, I know we don't live in your shoes. We don't really know. I'll never forget Chloe getting really angry and upset and saying, but no one understands what I go through, which is true. So learning how to express it is really key, isn't it?
Yes.
So do you want to share some of your positive experiences of advocating? Is that okay?
Yes, so I now work for Luck as a project assistant, so I haven't had to advocate for myself here, and I probably never will have to because I'm very lucky. But in my previous jobs, I was a spa therapist for Lush, and this was where I didn't advocate for myself, and I learned a lot of hard lessons as an adult. For example, they would say things to me when I didn't make a sale. Oh, it's your eyes that are broken, not your tongue. And everyone's going to think, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you say anything? But the thing is, you're scared. You're scared of, you know, saying what you need because you're scared of the consequences. Anyway, I left Lush. I came to my senses and resigned. And I got a job as a personal banker for NatWest, where I was for 4 years. And during that time, whenever I felt I needed something or my needs weren't being met, I said straight away. And I'll give you an example. So NatWest was a really old building, and it used to rain inside and not just outside. And on this particular day, it was raining through the light above my head. And the solution was to put buckets around me and me carry on serving my customers. So I went to my manager and I said, this isn't safe. I said, firstly, I can't see the water coming through the light. I don't know if it's going to blow. Secondly, you put buckets around me and not told me where they are. And he said, okay, then you don't have to work on that desk today. You can go do something else. The old Andrea wouldn't have gone to my manager because I would have thought, oh no, what if he sacks me? I'm a catastrophizer. What if he thinks badly of me? What if he tells me I'm being stupid? What if I've made it up? What if I'm lying? But the new Andrea is like, no, this is a health and safety risk. And not only is it a health and safety risk, they're not taking my needs into consideration at all. So I need to sort this out. And my top tip, which I'm trying to spread around to everybody, is when you're not sure whether you're sticking up for yourself or you're right or wrong, what is the worst that can happen in this situation? What is the actual worst case scenario? And when you put it down, the worst case scenario sometimes, and I say sometimes because sometimes it isn't actually that bad.
Fab. No, that is brilliant. I know, Heinke, you've got your hand up, and we do need to hear from Malika as well. So after Malika, we're going to have questions. Is that okay to wait? But someone else has put on the chat about the mentoring scheme, and I thought this might be a good time to talk about it a little bit, because I can talk about how Andrea has helped Chloe. So the Look Mentoring scheme, which I think there's a waiting list now, has these fantastic mentors who are VI adults who would like to give back to the community, and they're matched with like-minded mentees. And so Chloe was matched with Andrea because they're both deaf-blind, and it has really helped her. That crossness I was explaining about, she didn't want to talk to her dad or me about it. And I remember the call they do a lot of it via Brightside, which is a mentoring platform, so it's texting and emails, but Chloe can access that technology as a brailleist. So we've been having calls where they're supervised calls, and Chloe would need me on it as well. But I remember Andrea sitting there and kind of just saying a comment like, oh my goodness, when I was at school and it was lunch and it was so busy, I needed a quiet space. And that seemed to just kind of make a connection, didn't it, Andrea? And you kind of, in some way, she's opened up more and more and more to you, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's speaking to me on her own for the first time on Monday, isn't it? So, yeah. And that's a big step for Chloe, massive step.
Yeah. it's having people that get your situation. And I think for you, for the other young people, I know as well, you know, meeting other visually impaired children does make a big difference, or other people, where I remember there was another occasion where we met, and a mentor was taking a session about mobility and moving around. And again, Chloe wanted me in the space, but they started to have a conversation about the embarrassing things that can happen when you can't see. And she looked up and said, "Mum, can you go?" But it's having that space, isn't it, to be able to talk and share and feel that you're not on your own. That really helps. So I think the mentoring scheme is brilliant, but anywhere you can find your young people, someone who they identify with, might make a huge difference as well. A youth worker or anything like that. Andrea, do you want to just share the thing you helped Chloe with about friendship?
The bit about when we made a video for her class. Yes. So about a year ago now, Chloe needs to be in a quieter space at lunchtime, just so she can just recharge. Because when you have a dual sensory loss, it's sometimes sensory overload. It's just tiring. And friends weren't really understanding that, and they weren't really getting the whole hearing impairment, vision impairment thing. So what we did, we devised a video, and I answered some questions, and we sent that to her class so her class could watch it. And after as they were watching Chloe's video and listening to me answer the questions, after the video, Chloe then was able to answer the questions for herself, and her classmates were able to ask openly, "Oh, what how's this for you? How's that for you?" And Chloe was able to answer.
It just made such a difference, and it has, I'd say she's got friends now in school, which is a change. It doesn't mean other things are correct, but it's really good. It's just really positive. So last but not least from our panel today is Malika. So Malika, you've been so patient, and I know you can't wait to tell people about advocacy and what it's done for you. So thank you, Andrea, so much. And by the way, before Malika speaks, Sean's gone, but he's happy to kind of answer any questions separately if need be. So Malika, it's over to you.
Hello. So, as you know, my name is Malika, and I am the youngest person here. So today I'm coming to you from with the perspective of a young VI person who, well, I'm 15, so in the crucial years of my education. And the key points I want to make today is, I know some of them have been touched on already, but I guess we're going from the opposite end of the spectrum here, where what does it feel like to be what does it feel like to unable to be what does it feel like when you are unable to advocate? There we go, got it out. And how does that negatively impact pretty much everything you do when it comes to education, your social life, and dealing with other people and your environment, and from my personal experience? And I guess we can start with the talk about mental health, and how when you start to realize that, yes, I am visually impaired, I have these needs, it kind of clicks that I am different, but what am I supposed to do with this information? And what I've kind of understood is that you have to know yourself, like throughout your entire time in either secondary school or as soon as you start to realize it. You have to know your needs, know your limits, know your boundaries, know exactly what you want, because as we've all mentioned, sometimes the adults in our lives, they try so hard, but they aren't visually impaired, and some of us are, obviously, but aside QTVIs, they only read from a kind of objective outlook on it through a textbook or talking to people directly, but it's never the same as experiencing it firsthand. And when you put in unfamiliar situations of being a person with a disability, and you're not knowing what to say or how to react, it can be daunting, it can be scary. And I guess what I've learned is that when it comes to self-advocacy, you have to understand exactly why first of all, why is it important to advocate? What do you need to know about yourself to advocate? And also, the benefits of it. When in my past experience at mainstream school, there have been times that I've felt incredibly down, and I have to admit that mental health has always been a big challenge for me, and I have been in very low points, and most of it has come from the way people have reacted to things I've asked them to do, people not listening to me, people excluding me. And also, I think we've touched on this before, but masking, concealing and hiding parts of myself because I feel that people aren't going to listen. People are going to tell me that I'm wrong, that how can I know, because I'm a mere child. I don't have the experience. I haven't lived for over 30 years. I don't know these things. And yet to counter that, I've always thought in my back of my head that I'm visually impaired. I've had this firsthand. I have light sensitivity. I have problems with depth perception. I can't see text, and I need these aids. So, and where's the limits of when it's too little, too much? All these questions I have in my mind, and how am I supposed to get it out? And really, what I've come to understand is that, especially on paper, self-advocacy is easy, filling in forms, reading resources and things, but in the moment when you are put in a situation, an unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar people, questions coming at you all angles, you freeze up, your mind kind of goes blank, and you just don't know what to say. And it's honestly taken me so long to get to where I am, and I have had to make very crucial decisions about my future, what I want. And really, in an ideal world, a person with a disability shouldn't have to go through this. It should be able, we should all be, it's a free country, we should all have access to an education. And I had to take quite drastic measures, but right now I am happier, and I am glad I was able to advocate in the right times and the right moments, because it's got me in the position I am in now. But really, it's about knowing yourself, knowing your needs, and knowing when to advocate, how to advocate, and what are the benefits. From what I've noticed, the benefits are that you are genuinely more confident. You are able to focus on the challenges that matter, instead of having to worry about if you can talk to a subject teacher directly, and instead of having LSA being there like as a middleman, you can focus on, oh, this problem here on my test, I have to solve it. I can work my brain more. I can focus on the things that matter. And it's about priorities and putting yourself in a position where you know that you're happy and you're able to get the most out of a situation. See, I'm rambling again, but I hope I made my points clear.
Yeah, brilliantly. You're getting rounds of applause, but they're just muted. Is there anything, have you got any top tips for us parents that we should think about?
You have to come to mutual understanding with your child on this level of, you sit down, you talk through all your legal documents, your EHCP plans, any sort of vision documents or passports. I know some mainstream schools have that, and you talk to them directly. Are you struggling right now? Have they been doing things wrong? Do you think you're missing something? Is your social life okay? Is your educational life okay? Your parents need to be in the know, and they need to make sure that your well-being and mental health, all of it comes together in this big picture. So, and I know talking to your parents is really scary. I have had times where I feel like my mum doesn't understand, and that's okay too. And I think we've mentioned this as well, that the Look mentoring program and other similar programs like that, where you can talk to someone who is older, or at least someone who's like you, who's similar, who just gets it, if you know what I mean. And I have older VI friends. I had experience with Look's mentoring program. I'm a mentee. So honestly, it's just great. It's an outlet. You need to vent. You need to let people hear you. Maybe it's not in mainstream school to the LSAs and QTVIs that are helping you, but maybe it's just someone who just gets it and who's been through it too, and who can advise you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Now we have some time for questions. So Heinke's had her hand up for a long time. So Heinke, what's your question?
Yeah, I am amazed, actually, Malika. That's a fantastic talk. My daughter is 14, and I think I can learn a lot from you. I was just wondering, also with the previous talk from Andrea, whether or not we could kind of, I don't know, have some sort of toolkit or something that, because, you know, what you were saying is just really exactly what I'm also experiencing with my blind daughter. And it's just, you know, everything is just so difficult. And I think it needs to come, I think one has to kind of build resilience, but it's quite difficult. But it would be really useful if we could kind of get, you know, all this kind of information together and actually give it to young people and say, look, this is kind of what you have to do. And, you know, I'm very impressed by you because, you know, you have kind of, it seems like you've overcome your difficulties. Is that correct to say?
Yeah.
And are you still in a mainstream school?
Was that
Malika?
Yeah, that question was for Malika.
Hi, sorry, yes, I'm back. I'm not actually currently in a mainstream school anymore. I'm homeschooling.
You're homeschooling. Okay. That's what a lot of parents are also kind of considering. I just want to tell you very briefly what my daughter did recently. She sent an email to her music teacher and wrote very eloquently that, you know, this is not right, that she can't have braille music, etc. And funnily enough, he by mistake forwarded this email and copied her into the Senko and said, oh, this email was not written by Zari, surely not. This must have been obviously written by her mother. But I just emailed back and said, look, you know, I don't understand anything about music, and you can't assume that it was me who was sending this email. And it's just, you know, it just shows that, you know, the people, the professionals just don't listen to our children. And, you know, they think that it's all being drafted by us mothers, which is not the case. I mean, and just like you, Malika, I mean, my daughter is very kind of, she's trying to advocate for herself, but it's so difficult at times. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We have Malika's mum, Fizz, on the call, who's got her hand up. Hi, Fizz.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay? I'm
Yep.
on my mobile. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Wonderful. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that spoke today. I think it's so lovely to hear all the stories. I think as a parent of Malika, all I can say is every story has got weight. You know, it's individual experience. Even though our children have got the same type of challenges, but there is a spectrum of challenges as well, and I think it's all unique to us and it's valuable whatever we can share on this platform. So it's absolutely brilliant. When it comes to Malika, all I can say, it was not easy. Not at all, and it still isn't. I don't think it does get easier, but what has changed is that the way that we see things, the way that we see challenges is much more in a positive light, where we learn something from it. And that's where it's not going to be a perfect world. It never will be. I think all of us are going to face challenges, but the way that we approach these challenges and not let them doubt ourselves. And like, this is one thing I've said to Malika, do not ever believe that you are incapable of anything. You can achieve whatever it is that you want to. Never hold back. And now she's bringing me some, you know, some famous people that we didn't even know that had challenges, you know, and they've done so well in life. So it's really crucial for children to hear stories of what it could look like in the future as well. So I think this is where Look mentoring helps a lot, because these are people that have already gone through things and they're achieving, and then they come back and share their story and say, look, things change, so don't worry about it. But I just wanted to say that every story is unique, and it is an incredible journey. So thank you very much for sharing all your stories. One question I did have for Nikki, I wanted to ask you, Nikki, you know, when you sort of had a relationship with your child, when do you know when your child is right, and when do you know they're just being a child? Because that's hard. That was a difficult thing for me to overcome, where I thought, Malika, is it you just being a teenager, or is it actually real what your problems are, which we've overcome now?
Having two teenagers only a year apart, both with SEN, one majorly VI, one with a bit of CVI, but more autistic. I think you just have to know. I think what my answer is, it tends to crop up repeatedly. So you might take it and go, oh, she just had a bad day. Or you might go, okay, that's her perception of it. But usually what I found, certainly with Rihanna, is that she tended to just keep niggling at it. Do you know what I mean? So it would come back in a conversation, but maybe in a different way, or she would repeat it at another time. And it just clocks on that fact of when something is there on a repeated basis, you know it's an underlying problem. Or she might then ask a question that was different, but you knew that that actually was really, you know, relating to the original problem, because it was about how to process it, and she couldn't, because being a teenager is difficult enough. The problem is a lot of the school will go, they're just being a teenager. But what I found is actually 95% of it was actually her visual impairment, and Rihanna was right, 5% was her being a teenager, to be honest, when she was coming up with something that she felt important enough to, have a problem with and want help with. With my son, he wasn't able to verbalize it, and we found out by his behavior rather than what he said. And so we knew by his behavior that there was a problem, rather than, so you had a different measure, but you could still measure it as you knew that that was a problem.
Sure, I think you're spot on there, Nikki, because at the beginning I used to think, Malika, it's just the way it is, or, you're overlooking it. But what I learned is pain is real. If they mention it and again they mention it and again they mention it, it's real, and we need to give them that support when that is happening.
My daughter told the local authority representative that he'd had a direct effect on her mental health, because she'd been saying, you're affecting my emotional health. And we had this conversation about emotional health being part of mental health, and mental health being a hot potato, and something that is really, and I said, we even discussed the language that it was her choice, but if she wanted to, and she actually turned it around, and she now always tells them, you are affecting my mental health, you have had an effect, I'm having, and she then actually spelt it out to panic attacks, nightmares, I have a fear of dying, I can't, and all of these things that she actually has told the local authority, and they're a bit open-mouthed, but they can't take that back once she's told them that's exactly how it's impacting her. And although it means she still has to deal with that, and we still have to support that, it made her feel so much better. It's like, well, they know now, and they can't say that it's not because I've told them. But she is a bit older, remember now. She's sort of just had her 18th birthday. So, it has built up until it's only been in the last probably year that she's got to the stage she is now, I would say.
Yeah, brilliant, Nikki. It's just really great to have you.
Malika sounds brilliant.
Yes, Malika. It was lovely to get an email yesterday. I was like, yeah, brilliant. We do need all perspectives. Yeah, Sean has gone, but it was really good to hear from him, and really good to hear that actually he had such a positive experience. But I think as well, as parents, you need to trust your instincts and know that, yes, we know that our voices aren't always taken as seriously. So any way you can, gather your child's views. It doesn't have to be through those forms. Take that away as well. And find independent advocates if you can. And for them to use their skills, because it's hard for our children to talk about things going wrong because they worry about us as well, I think. Malika, did you worry about your mum?
Yeah, definitely. It was always such a struggle thinking, am I right? Am I just being a bratty teen? What's going on? And there was a lot of communication and it was very, very emotional. A lot of tears were shed, honestly. It was just a big journey. I think Mum told you about this, but yeah.
So we have got a little bit of time if anyone's got any other questions or thoughts. Look, it's definitely going to support advocacy as a theme next year. We know it's really important. And also, you know, that strength of the mentoring and mentees, but widening it to outside the community as well. So we're developing some look into events. Ellen, I don't know, I'm putting you on the spot, but Ellen, look, do you want to say anything about that? So shall we ask people to watch this space?
Yeah, so we have started a new series of Q&As called Look Into, which are question and answer sessions, bringing together inspiring speakers, people like Andrea and Sean and Malika, for sessions with young people where young people can ask their own questions. So after Christmas, we're having one with VI actors. Before Christmas, the first session we had was with Rachel Starrett, a professional VI pianist. At the minute, it's very much informed by what young people that we work with have asked for. So they've asked to hear from a VI musician and a VI actor. So that's kind of the direction that it's taking. So yeah, watch the space for more of those kinds of sessions.
Fab. I want to thank all the panelists and also say that our next session, the end of year Christmas present from Look for all you parent carers, is going to be a session on positivity, because it's so hard. I've just had a direct message from one of my friends saying, it's just, you know, I'm tired of hitting my head against a brick wall. Our wonderful colleague, Sydney May, who runs the mentoring in Sussex, is also a life coach and a counsellor. And so she's going to come and do a session for us, which the last one I had when we went away with Look, I was so inspired, and so I was given the courage to advocate again for Chloe. So I got up the next day and wrote a very clear email to the local authority and the advisory service about how they needed to meet with me and find a way forward, because they weren't meeting Chloe's needs. And I got response the next day, and I've had a meeting. So yeah, just know sometimes those kind of things are important for us. We hold a lot. Our children are fantastic, and you know, you can carry on advocating for them, but obviously the best scenario is to support them so that, like Malika, they can have their say, and Nikki's children and Chloe, because Chloe now wants to change schools, settings. I think it's the right choice for her. But what will get her there is her saying to everybody, because hopefully they won't be able to ignore it. Yeah. I will send out some resources as soon as possible, and also the recording will go on. Yeah, thank you, Malika. You were just brilliant, and Fiz for coming on as well, Nikki, and Andrea, who I'm very biased about because she has helped Chloe find her voice. Yeah, I hope you all have a good Christmas, and hopefully see you, some of you on the 21st, for a little present at the end of the year.